Brock Dolman is one of my environmental heroes, along with Don Tippin. I was in 7 Seeds Farms in Williams, Oregon, Siskiyou Seeds, and also Starhawk. Starhawk, who is a very well-known, I think everyone has read Starhawk in the past 20 years, and we all have been very inspired with her work. I think she has influenced most of the environmental activists in California, Northern California, in the United States and Canada. And we have here tonight, but we're going to start with my friend Don Tippin. I don't know if he's ready. If he's not ready, we're going to take like 30 seconds or 20 seconds break. And after that, immediately we will go into Don Tippin, who is the founder of Siskiyou Seeds Cooperative and also 7 Seeds Farm in Williams, Oregon. And he is the host of Seeds Academy. I took a Seeds Academy in his farm 3 years ago, and it was amazing. So, Don, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me okay?
Thank you for being here, and you're welcome, and you have the stage. Thank you so much.
Terrific. Thank you, everyone, for your attention. I'm really grateful to be here and be circling around soil and the elemental forces of all the things that come together to facilitate life on this planet. And I'm coming to you from southwestern Oregon. I live in the Siskiyou Mountains, right along the California-Oregon border, the traditional homelands of the Tagelma and Dakabutiti people. And I've been farming here for about 25 years, primarily focusing in on seeds. We grow about 1,000 different species of plants here and many varieties in some of those. And for me, this is a journey that have been led along by seeds. So I'm going to jump to an image here that, first off, this is our seed company that we have here, Siskiyou Seeds, and we grow about 50% of the seed that we offer through the listing, and then we've developed basically like a seed shed of a network of organic family farms that breed, select, and adapt open pollinated varieties for our bioregion as an answer for climate change resilience. And to me, that's one of the a really valuable tool that we have to address that. So through this network, we have multiple intelligences of people that are really ear to the ground, eyes in the plants, looking for novel variation, adaptation to pest, disease, that type of thing. And ultimately beginning to look at our greater landscape as a watershed, but also a pollen shed and a seed shed, and looking at the flow of genetics and how it's one of the bases for culture, for people growing their sustenance, dye plants, medicinal herbs, and that type of thing. So to me, that work, as we do it, I realize we would benefit from having more people engaged in this work. So
can you please share the screen, okay, now you are there. Sorry.
Yeah. And I'm going to share another image here. Let's see here. And this other image to me really encapsulates some of the work that I feel like is really important to be doing with regards to, sorry, I'm having a little tech moment here. With getting this information, decentralizing it, I feel like one of the biggest lessons that COVID is teaching me is that we as a human species will benefit from having decentralized, network-based solutions to address, the problems that we're facing today. And currently, we've put so many of our resources in the hands of so few individuals that the knowledge about seed is, trying to get to a full screen here. There we go. Is becoming increasingly consolidated in the hands of kind of this, behind this veil of secrecy. So this image here that you're looking at, and hopefully you can see it, is a fava bean seed that an amazing artist, Sergey, who's a Russian seed engraver, engraved. And this here, he was asking me about one of my favorite seeds was fava beans. And I feel like connecting the dots between culture, seed, and social justice to understand like where did we come from as a culture and a people. And we have earth, air, fire, water, but also seeds. Those are some of the foundational elements of how we come together as a civilization. And so much of that story has been lost to profit and capitalism and intellectual property and that kind of thing. So on this fava bean, what Sergey did is you can see a map of the earth on one side showing where fava beans are typically cultivated. And on the other side, you know, the knowledge that humans bring, that where we take the horticulture and the ecology of botany into what I like to see is almost, you know, this agro-ecological view, almost like like an ethnobotanist. We have ethnoagronomy of like, what is the culture of our relationship with seed and how are we getting the power of that back into the local communities and back into the hands of people from backyard gardeners to large-scale farms where they have a relationship with saving seeds that are adapting to the environment and continually fine-tuning that relationship with the pests, solar cycles, disease cycles of plants, photo periods, and that type of thing. So we have a resilient food system. And this is something that, for myself, I feel really passionate about. And one of the ways we're making this relationship more available is through the Seed Academy training that we were fortunate to have Miguel participate with here at our farm. And we'll be hosting another one coming up mid-October where it's a 4-day deep dive into reproductive botany and plants and really understanding what is the story the seeds carry. You know, if we go back 500 generations with all humans, we are hunter-gatherers. So this is still a fairly novel relationship, and I think it's one that's co-emergent and a continual dance between the elemental forces and humans' relationship with seed. And I feel like if we take this as a dance, as a creative, imaginative, open listening journey, the seeds can lead us into a place where we can find these nodes of resilience, where we can address climate stresses and adapt the plants to provide a stable foundation for human peoples and to thrive, and then be the stewards of larger ecosystems. Because right now, half of the world's productive land is managed by agriculture. So I feel like our best chance at preserving biodiversity is get farmers on board with understanding that crucial role of stewardship and really paying homage to the seeds and the stories they carry. So, you know, through this work of the Seed Academy, which again, academy comes from the Greek academy, the temple to Athena, that consolidation and curation of knowledge, of skill, and really, you know, bowing down in supplication to the wisdom encoded in all these seeds. You know, you look at a fava bean like this, and perhaps I'll close it on this piece. One of my mentors, Bill McDorman, holds up a USB thumb drive and a fava bean seed and says, which one holds more information? And, you know, a young person might say the USB drive, you got 30 gigs on there. And no way, you know, like the fava bean is about the same size, and it not only holds more information, genetic memory, but it also has the potential to reproduce itself. And to me, I find great hope in that. And amidst all of the kind of negative forces coalescing in the mainstream media news cycles, for myself, the more I turn to things like seeds, understanding these pollen sheds, seed sheds, and these networks of people that are thinking long-term about how to curate for future generations abundance of the genetic resources that we can hand over, that gives me great hope that, you know, in that seed, it has the ability to reproduce itself and magnify that potential greatly. And I guess I just want to leave it with that of just, again, for myself, and I want to encourage all of us, just trust in the elemental forces and in nature and learn from it. And I know I'm continually in that humble journey of just widening the my awareness. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Don. At the end, we're going to have a couple of questions. I think we're going to continue with Tom Duncan. Tom, are you there? Tom?
Yes,
Tom
I'm here.
Tom is the CEO of Airbank, green digital banking and investing platform, and he's doing an amazing work around the world with mangroves and other kind of ecological restoration. I'm sorry, I didn't have time to talk about you in the beginning, but I am so glad that you join us, that you have the time, and I know that you are known in America and the continent, because America is a continent, right? So, and I am glad that you do the time during the night time to speak at this conference. Thank you so much for being here, and you have the microphone now.
It's great to be here with you. Thanks, Miguel. I really love the Soil Not Oil conference. A couple of years ago, spoke about some of the work we were doing on large-scale lake and waterway restoration, and just how important it is to clean up and prevent the pollution of our ocean and river waters. Water is life, as we know, and the oceans are so impacted by pollution runoff from unsustainable agriculture and from extractive economic activity. And so what my journey has been about has been large-scale land and water restoration. In 2016, I co-wrote a chapter for a book called Land Restoration, Alan Saberly saying that was called Regenerating Agriculture to Sustain Civilization. And what that was about was to say, if we don't start sustaining our soils and protecting our ecosystems, not just becoming carbon neutral, but actually moving to a regenerative economic framework, then we do face civilizational collapse. And so what my effort and intention has been is to help harness funds and finance and philanthropy into regenerative activities. So we formed Earthbank platform as a way to do that. I'll just share my screen. Okay. So yeah, just checking if, okay. Yeah, so what we're doing at Earthbank is helping everyday people and institutions align their personal or institutional wealth with planetary health. And we're trying to make it very explicit that what you do with your money really, really counts. And you need to start voting with your money. It needs to be divested from unsustainable activities. And so what we've been doing is helping people do that. So you can see here there's a tiger. That tiger is a tiger of the Sundarbans called the swamp tiger. It's nearly extinct. It actually lives in the world's largest mangrove ecosystem on the planet in the Sundarbans in India. Now, it also happens to be the largest storage of blue carbon on the planet. And so if you're serious about protecting the stores of carbon that we have on the planet, and most 50% of lands around the world are actually managed by indigenous communities, then you need to find a way to help those communities not just survive but thrive. And this is where regenerative funding comes in and is so important. So we've been working with community in the South Sundarbans. Basically we help people connect their existing bank accounts and reduce the carbon footprint and help funnel that money into regenerative projects. And so what we're doing is we're trying to help people grow an earth positive giving, so philanthropic as well as investments portfolio. But we're super focused on mangroves, and why? So 750,000 trees have been planted so far in the Sundarbans with our partners, and we need to scale up to 10 million trees. But we actually have a vision, and this is one of our blogs, to actually do much more than that. Now, you may have heard that Zurich, they actually did a study saying if you planted 1 trillion trees, you would buy the planet 15 more years. Now, the thing is, mangroves, they sequester 5 times more carbon than terrestrial forests. But if you take into consideration that once the mangroves are restored, that the seagrasses start recovering as well. And what that means is seagrasses are so important for fish spawning, bivalves to live there and process nitrogen. And they provide so many so-called ecosystem services or functional ecosystems that make our world habitable. And without them, we're on a fast track to civilizational collapse if we don't protect these vital ecosystems. So once you take into account seagrass recovery, you can actually sequester 20 to 50-fold carbon of a conventional tree. So one mangrove can equal 20 to 50 regular trees in a terrestrial forest. And so if you planted 20 to 50 billion mangroves, that could help restore enough seagrasses to be equivalent to about 1 trillion trees. So if you think about that, when people say, we need to, become regenerative, this is one of the metrics that we say you need to hit if you want to start drawing down enough carbon into living, breathing ecosystems that are fundamental to wildlife and habitat, and also the indigenous communities that are often the stewards or custodians of those lands that we help support. So what we've started doing is helping protect ecosystems, plant trees, and help people become climate positive. So we help protect ecosystems by paying local custodians carbon micropayments. We help verify with satellites exactly what planting has been done. And then we help, and so this is just a little bit of the video about our process of how it works. So we take satellite footage and we zoom in basically on areas that are planted. And then we do some AI and satellite verification to show exactly how many trees have been planted, and we verify that. So we're a technology company that helps do that, as well as helping with the micropayments to local communities that otherwise would never get access to carbon payments. Usually, carbon payments have been associated with very large, monolithic, often unsustainable carbon projects, and often also unjust and don't have social equity. So we make sure that all of the communities who get paid here to plant trees and maintain them actually get a fairly large yield. So a big principle in permaculture is earth care, people care, and fair share. And so there has to be a fair share of payments to the communities who are taking care of these vital ecosystems. And as I said, Sundarbans is the largest blue carbon sequestration site on the planet. And if you don't protect it, runaway climate change is a real problem. So that's what we've been doing. We're also making it possible, most carbon projects, they're at least 2,000 hectares minimum, often 20 or 100,000 hectares, which turns them into monolithic projects that can often lead to corruption. What we're allowing is anyone on the planet, whether you're a smallholder in the Sundarbans, whether you're a holistic grazier in Kansas grasslands, no matter where you are, we can help verify and pay for carbon that is as small as 250 square meters, which is an 80,000-fold increase in efficiency using our technology and AI to basically help measure and verify carbon. And you can see the difference in size. The red square is basically a conventional project, a minimum size, and you can see these tiny little smaller polygons is the size projects we can do, which is just so much smaller and making it more accessible. So, we help people understand their impact of what it means to protect ecosystems, particularly mangrove ecosystems right now. But we are also working on cloud forests in Costa Rica and expanding across the Americas. We think protecting ecosystems and planting trees is so crucial right now. This coronavirus situation, if people think, wow, this is a really bad economic impact, but the truth is that the chaos that awaits us with climate change and ecosystem collapse is so much bigger. And so the chaos of coronavirus is but a taste of what is to come with climate change. So we need to build resilient economic systems. We need to build regenerative economic models and frameworks. And this is our attempt to essentially decentralize ecosystem restoration and funding so that anyone on the planet can get paid to restore ecosystems and be rewarded for being good stewards of the environment. So yeah, please, if you feel called to this, please sign up to our. We're launching a family and friends soon to open up an Earth Bank Plus account, which essentially helps restore ecosystems. So I encourage anyone who feels called to please sign up and join the movement, because ecosystem restoration right now is so key. Yeah. Am I out of time, Miguel?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you repeat the question? Yes. So the next one is going to be Brooke, and at the end, maybe we can make a couple of questions, if it's okay with you, Tom.
Yes.
It's okay. Okay, Brooke is one of the co-founders of the Occidental. Well, Brooke is the co-founder of the Sewing Circle LLC, but is also is part of an amazing project in Occidental California. And that I saw him, I realized that Earth is not planet Earth, but planet water. And it really resonates on me. And I am so glad that Brooke is here today. And Brooke, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'm here. Hi, Miguel.
Well, we're in the same shirt.
Exactly.
So not all shirt. You see mine? So, yes, the same thing. If somebody in the public wants one, you can contact Cotton. So thank you so much for being here. And now you are on the stage and you have the microphone.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Miguel, for all you've been doing with Soil Not Oil for all the years, and everyone else who's helping. And a big just shout out to everybody out there in Soil Not Oil Landia all over the globe. It's an amazing gathering, and we're honored to be on the closer here. The bases are loaded, and we're swinging for the fence on this one. Yeah, so my name is Brock Dahlman, and I'm living in Western Sonoma County. And I'm going to share my screen and just show you a few slides here, and we'll get into that. So let's see, share. Hopefully that looks good. Okay. So yeah, I live in Western Sonoma County, and I'm actually part of an intentional community named Sowing Circle, S-O-W-I-N-G. That's an LLC. There's an intentional community that for the last 25 years, we've co-owned this 80-acre piece of property, and it's a consensus-based collective. And that's probably our most permacultural thing we're doing, is actually a group of people trying to live together and figure out how to get along with each other in a cooperative, collaborative manner to then do the good work that we're all talking about, especially moving to a soil-based economy versus an oil-based economy. And the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center is this nonprofit, and you'll go have a look at the website, but it's a demonstration farm center. We inherited a place that used to be the Farallons Institute. It's one of the oldest certified organic farms in California. Much like Don Tipping there, we have an amazing seed bank here under the guidance of Doug Gosling, who's been the head gardener seeds person here. And we also have a retreat center and a facility and do lots of trainings and things in that regard. And I do want to, and thank you, Don, for acknowledging your First Nations people where you are. We are in Western Sonoma County, are in the traditional homeland of Southern Pomo, Coast Miwok, and Kashaya Pomo people. And I just had a couple pictures here of a number of those Pomo, Miwok, and Kashaya Pomo folks who we've worked with for the last 20 years, and there's 3 to 4 generations of those native folks shown here in these images. And as they say, we are still here, they are still here, and they're thriving and doing well. And so we're honored to be good guests in their homeland with them and do that work. And then really just welcoming us, I think, to the bigger context, which is really welcome to planet water. Planet Earth's an interesting idea, but I think when you really look at all the other planets and such out there, this amazing planet, this one that we really should call planet water, 70% of the surface of the planet is liquid water. Even all the white vapor, solid state up in the clouds and the atmosphere is water, as you can see. The vegetation is mostly water. And what's really cool about planet water is it's the only place in the known universe where life is endemic. Super interested in meeting extraterrestrials. Love that idea. Haven't yet. Not interested in moving to the moon nor Mars. I'm happy if Elon Musk wants to go there by himself. There may be water on the dark side of the moon, but I think it was a better album name for Pink Floyd than a place to move to, in my humble opinion. I've been a biologist basically since birth. Biology, meaning one who is a studier, a student of life, a biophiliac. My father did 3 tours in Vietnam, and so I grew up in my earliest years in Japan. Here I am trying to catch tadpoles as a 3-year-old in a Japanese rice paddy. And I ultimately figured out how to go to school and I'm a conservation biologist and agroecologist, and I graduated at UC Santa Cruz 3+ years ago, and been really pursuing that path ever since. But it's really a path that recognizes the relationship that the water cycle and the life cycle are one cycle. No water, no life. And so life as we know it, we're carbon-based life forms. Our central atom is carbon, but yet by volume we're mostly water. And really what I want to talk about on this panel, this talk here around the concept of chaos and resilience, is at the foundation of resilience, and what planet water has shown us is that having regenerative relationship with reciprocity, with cycles. And the cycles I think we have to be fundamentally reconnected to in a virtuous, good ways is really the water cycle and the carbon cycle. And this, one of the great uses of ink, if you will, in my opinion, is an intern at OAC some years ago, and this tattoo on his forearm. And what you see in this classic chemical equation here is it's 6 CO2 and 6 H2O. So it's carbon and water are the raw inputs with sunlight into chlorophyll, and out you get sugar and oxygen. And that, my friends, is one of the great geniuses of this Gaianistic planet we live on. And so how do we move into the sunlight, into sugar, into soil, which is really our salvation cycle, and reconnect? And that's really the beauty of seeing living soil as the ecosystem that it is, with the raw materials, the textures, the sands, the silts, the clays, but then bringing life together to turn sunlight into sugar and cycle the carbon and water, with life being the generator of it, the symbiogenesis of that, if you will. And then really I think a lot about scale and topography. I'm a topophiliac. And where the work happens is, and what I think is most efficacious, is to play at the scale of what we would call watersheds and these catchments, these drainages, and really rethink from the ridge line to the river out to the reef in a reverential reciprocity, and rethink all human land use, urban, rural, suburban, forestry, rangeland, intensive ag, extensive ag. How are those systems being done in ways that honor and enhance the fecundity of the carbon and water cycles upon which life depends, including us two-legged naked apes, or as I like to refer to us as us bipedal sacks of saline solution, and that's a compliment. And so I really think about our watersheds as basins of relations, and it's really about relationship. And resiliency and relationship are almost synonymous to me. And yet the place in watersheds that we start working on is in the headwaters, in the top of the system. And I think that the headwaters that's got to get it, though, is this headwaters right here. It's the headwaters in our own head. How do we mitigate cerebral imperviousness to do what I call ecosystem restoration? What's the storyline we believe? Is planet water a community or a commodity? And the fossil fuel fetish of the oligarchy is telling us that we can live on dead fossil fuels. And I don't want to be post-carbon, because carbon is life. I want to be post-petroleum. I want to be post-white supremacy, corporatocracy, but not post-carbon, as carbon is life. And I really value and honor indigenous perspective in Orange Lions, who I've had the blessing of being around on a few occasions. This wonderful quote from his people, the Onondaga people of this Iroquois Confederacy, and this idea that what you people call your natural resources, our people call relatives, is there's a kin-centric worldview. I'm a kinesthetic learner. Don talked about the multiple intelligences. One of mine is kinesthetics, but I want to honor the aesthetics that we are kin with all life. That's kinesthetics right there in a kin-centric realm. And then I really appreciate this proverb from Africa that I saw when I was in South Africa some years ago, that this idea that if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. And I think resiliency as well is about being together. And it's a togetherness, a connectedness. And I'm glad that Tom brought up permaculture, which is something I've been a student and teacher of for the last 25 years. And this is a couple of bilingual set of images from a pen that we actually have, a permaculture pen. And this idea that for us, permaculture is a design method for regenerative human settlements that are just and are based in natural patterns and processes. And there's a set of principles, which I don't have time to get into, about how we really enact and behave in these reverential manners. And then ultimately for me, it's really this, keep coming back to these cycles. And so I often talk about conservation hydrology, conservation carbonology, if you will, as we connected to regenerative, rehydrative, where we receive and recharge and retain and release in a reverential rehydration, reciprocal revolution. And that's the opportunity for us, is really to reconnect, and the soil, not oil. And so I do want to bring folks' attention to the work of Movement Generation, the Justice and Ecology Project. In the lower left is a zine that they put together, and this is just the centerfold of that zine, and it's their strategic framework for a just transition and moving from extractive economies to regenerative economies. And so I would recommend folks go and download that zine and really study it, because I think it's one of the best pieces on a strategic justice-based framework based on the idea that transition is inevitable, but justice is not. And resiliency is really about the inevitability of justice for all. And so I thank you for your attention, and I'll turn it back over to Miguel.
Brooke, thank you so much. I think we will have time for questions, for a couple of questions that I haven't, maybe the public. And the next speaker is Starhawk. He's an activist, ecofeminist, neo-paganist, author, an amazing person, and she's one of our heroes. You know, she's amazing. I think we all have learned from her. And Starhawk, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Okay, perfect. So, yes, are you at your house? I really would like to go back to your house to have a tea with you in the morning, now that I am not living in the mission anymore.
I wish you were here, and I wish we were in a time where we could just hang out and have tea and do all those things that seemed so normal. And hold on, my computer table is suddenly falling apart, but I'll...
The time will come back, you know, the time will be back in which we're going to hang out again.
Yeah.
And now is your time to speak. And if you are ready, the stage is yours.
So hello, everybody. It's great to be here, and great to be with so many wonderful, inspiring people, and see some of you I know, and it's great to see you again. Some of you are new, and I'm excited for what you're doing. I wanted to talk to you. I'll say what I do. I'm an author, writer, and activist, and I also am a permaculture designer and teacher. I direct an organization called Earth Activist Training that teaches permaculture design with a grounding in spirit and a focus on organizing and activism. We have done a lot of work to try to diversify the permaculture movement. Our form of reparations has been offering diversity scholarships for people of color, trying to make our courses more accessible for people who often don't have access to this knowledge and who often need it because they're mostly on the front lines of struggle. So what I want to talk to you about today, so many people here have talked in such inspiring ways about the projects they're doing and what they're doing for the land. But what I want to talk about is what's the underlying shift in consciousness that we need to make? So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now and show you some pictures. Resilience in a time of chaos. So I'd like to start by calling us all to imagine that if we want to change the world, the first thing we have to do is imagine it, envision it, get a picture in our minds of what it could be. You know, could we tear up our streets and plant gardens? Could we cover our roofs with food? Could we have kites that we fly that are generating electricity, and gatherings of people, and green roofs, and bicycles running through beautiful gardens, instead of a world that we have full of oil spills and nuclear accidents, tar sands and fracking, fire and climate change, the things that we're already seeing as an impact of climate change. And this is a Native American proverb. Oops, sorry. I think some of these slides are a little have an old audio attached to it, but the proverb is basically, if we don't change our direction, we're going to wind up where we're headed. And this is a quote from Bill Mollison, who is one of the first people who founded permaculture. And I think about it almost every day when I'm reading the news, that evil is stupidity rigorously applied. And we seem to be in a time where that is happening. And part of that is because we are living in this time of centralized power, the fossil fuel power that maintains itself with the centralized police power and with these systems that racism and sexism and all of those systems that undermine and destroy our capacity to actually understand who we are and how we can connect together. So in permaculture, we have 3 core ethics. We say care for the earth, care for the people, and the third one, the slide seems to have disappeared, but the third one is to care for the future, to limit consumption, to return the surplus into the system. And when we do that, we have this capacity to create regenerative abundance. Oh, there it is. And to understand that, to do that, when we look at how do we make change, you know, there are many different ways that we have to go about it. Change is like an ecosystem, and just like that place where the ocean meets the shore, has many, many, many different niches to fill. So in permaculture, we're talking about really a shift in paradigms, taking nature as our model, understanding that nature works in circles and cycles. And those are cycles of birth and growth and death and regeneration. That we're designing relationships, not just simple isolated objects. And to me, this is like the core shift that we need to make. It's not, again, just a shift in what we do, but it's a shift in our way of thinking. And, you know, in this we can be guided by the elders and indigenous traditions who've never lost this way of thinking, but understanding, as Brock was just saying, that everything around us is in relationship, and that what we need is not a bunch of separate, isolated things. We need to understand how things come together, how they support each other, how they interact with each other, those webs of relationships. What are the connections and what are the flows? And we need to think about feeding what we want to grow. You know, we often think about nuking what we don't want, you know, killing it, getting rid of it, You know, if we're doing conventional agriculture and you see a bug or a pest, it's like, how do I kill it? How do I get rid of it? But if you're doing permaculture, if you're doing agroecology, if you're thinking relationally, what you're looking at is, oh, I have a bug here. Let me learn more about it. This is information. Is this helpful? Is this eating my stuff? What are the conditions that I have created that are allowing this bug to flourish? And if I want something else to flourish instead, how do I create different conditions that are going to favor the things I want instead of the things that I don't want? And finally, we have to think about creativity as an unlimited resource. That is the one resource that is most abundant on this earth and on this planet, and that can never be used up. So we need to be using local and on-site resources and building community. This is actually a grocery store in England where they're serving food from the sky that's grown in a community garden on top of the grocery store. I love that. And finally, part of that thinking relationally is valuing diversity. Whether that's polycultures that we're planting or valuing the diversity of human beings, understanding that it is diversity that makes a system more resilient. That with a diverse group of people, you're going to get a diverse group of perspectives. You're going to get intelligence. You're going to get life experience that comes from multiple different places. You're going to get different languages that construct the world in different ways. And all of that makes us more intelligent. All of that gives us more of the tools that we need to respond to change and respond to the challenges of our time. And in permaculture, we say obtain a yield. You know, we're not talking about let's create a grim world where we all stand in food lines for a little spoonful of gruel. We're saying that when we do these things, we actually can create abundance. But that abundance has to be rooted in, again, that fair share, that justice. Otherwise, it doesn't work. You know, you can't have a forest that will thrive if 3 of the trees are using 99% of the resources and all the rest are sharing the last 1%. You know, you can't have the kind of inequality that we have in our social systems and economic systems and expect the system to survive and to thrive. So when we talk about making these changes and making these transitions, it's not just that a just transition is a good idea, or even that it's just the right thing to do. It's the only way to make a transition that's actually going to be truly regenerative and truly sustainable. And when we do that, then really the world does provide enough. It provides what we need. And it creates an incredible sense of wonder. So I'm going to say, welcome to Possible. It is up to us to create possible. And to create possible, we might have to shift our thinking from, again, seeing the sacred, seeing what's most important to us as something that's up and outside of the world and away and somewhere far away, to seeing it as maybe those things we've always thought of as lowly, like the worm or the fungus or the dirt or the soil. All those things that we walk on and we take for granted, but which are actually the things that sustain our lives. And when we do that, when we make those shifts, then we have this incredible capacity to transform and, again, to change our world. So I think if I'm done with my time.
I have a question for all of you.
Mm-hmm.
And the question, maybe we can just go around and see who would like to answer. But the first question is, what have you learned from this crisis that you would never expect to live? Maybe a lot of people were expecting to see falling the corporations and to give a little push in that would be nice. But maybe a lot of people didn't expect something like this to happen. And I wonder, what have you learned? Something that took you by surprise?
Well, perhaps I can chime in here.
Mm-hmm.
For a long time, our motto here on our farm and with the seed company is that we don't actually grow seeds, we grow people. And with COVID, there's been a tremendous surge in people gardening. So many new gardens. And as a one metric, our seed company, our sales have been 400% higher than last year. And we've been having to do swing shifts, working weekends. But out of that too, Dusty Hines of the Experimental Farm Network really led the charge for the Cooperative Gardens Commission, which is our modern day victory gardens. And it's seed companies and garden educators and many people. I think we've had over almost 100,000 people participating, helping get the resources to grow food at the regional scale in cities, seeds, how to do it and all that. So again, this grassroots movement that's just coming from out of nowhere. So while some people are out of work getting unemployment, others are incredibly busy. And I think that what's really being shown is those that are supporting life and what's possible, like Starhawk was saying, are being shown to be essential in the way forward of a regenerative, restorative, just future.
Great. Anyone would like to jump? Anyone else, like Brooke or Starhawk or Tom?
I'm happy.
Answer the question.
I'll give a little bit on it. I mean, I think less about being surprised and more about being affirmed, in a sense that I think so many of us who've been working on what were so-called maybe perceived of as non-essential alternatives, these kinds of things that the society didn't perceive as quote essential, that I think Don just spoke about, that when push comes to shove, we first of all see how unresilient the collective system is and the economic system is and the lack of connectivity, and how critical the community-based organizing and life-based human-centered justice networks are. And so I just continue to feel really a lot of sense of affirmation that we've been on the right path, all of us, for however long the many of us have been on these journeys together, and there's an affirmation to that, and that it really leads to something where I love this quote by this gentleman named Eduardo Galeano, which says that the rights of human beings and the rights of nature are two names for the same dignity. And what I've really seen out of this crisis is just the dignity of reconnecting people and place and planet as community versus as commodity. And that's, maybe that is surprising, but I'm also affirmed with it.
Well, it's very poetic, your response, and it's very metaphoric, and really it's going to resonate with everyone, because, yes, and Eduardo Galeano was super smart, but the way you put it out there, I think that is so beautiful. So, question?
I guess I could speak to that. Are you hearing me?
Yes.
Great. For me, it was quite a change from normally I'm teaching a lot, I'm traveling a lot, I'm going a lot of places, and just actually being in one place for months and months. In some ways, it was such an incredible relief. If it weren't for how many people were dying, I would have considered it almost a gift. But it was gratifying to see how instinctively people immediately went to gardening, to baking, I went to the nursery on the first day of our lockdown in San Francisco, and every single vegetable start was gone. The the shelves have been empty of seeds because now people are turning to this. And I think it has created a tremendous opening for people to reconnect to the earth and to kind of go back and say, well, what is really important? What really creates security for us? You know, maybe it's not those abstract numbers in our bank account. Maybe it's actually, I think as Bill Mollison said, when it's being able to look outside and see your food actually growing around you. I also think it's been a tremendous both surprise and gratification to see what has happened with the kind of uprising we've had around Black Lives Matter here in this country. Because, you know, with political activism, you can work on an issue for years and years and years. I mean, I've been involved in work around racism and around justice for decades. And you can go for decades. You'll show up to the demonstration, it'll be the same 50 people, right? Over and over and over again, and you feel like you're getting nowhere. And then all of a sudden, the whole world erupts, and things actually change. And you wonder, like, how'd that happen? Like, what was different, you know, yesterday than 3 months ago when we were protesting the same thing? And I think in some sense, you know, there's an aspect of it that's a mystery that we can't know, that we have to have the faith that we continue to work and we continue to work on these justice systems. Someone compared it to trying to open a jar that's stuck, and you know, you're trying and trying and trying, it doesn't get anywhere, and all of a sudden, right, it opens. But all that effort you put into it, you couldn't see it, you couldn't feel it, but it was actually loosening that. And I think the pandemic, by throwing everybody out of their normal patterns, has loosened some things up and made other things possible. So I think now is a really crucial time. We see the world more polarized on the one hand than ever, with the rise of right-wing fascism, with neo-Nazism, with people defending white supremacy and patriarchy, you know, to their last breath. And at the same time, we see this tremendous eruption of people calling for justice from all walks of life, and tremendous hopefulness. And I personally just feel so grateful and so privileged to be part of the movements around regeneration, and to know so many people who are working on the solutions, who have solutions, who have done that work of envisioning the solutions. Because I think if we have those solutions and we can put them out there and we can show them to people, you know, then we have a way to channel this energy into something that can actually bring us into that incredible world we know is possible.
Thank you so much. I just have a question for Jason. Can we extend this if you speakers, Starhawk, Brooke, Tom, Don are available? Can we extend a little this presentation, because I really have a couple more questions and you have a lot to offer. And actually it's the last one. No one is following this. So it's possible, Jason?
Fine with me.
Yes, Jason and Bunker, is it possible, Mark?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, let's see. Okay, perfect. We're going to stand for a few minutes. And, you know, it's amazing what we are seeing now. And I know that a lot of people is fearful. Even we were activists for many years, as Mr. Hot says. We went in 2013 organizing about Black Lives Matter, supporting immigrant rights, LGBT rights, you know, all these struggles. In 2002, 2003, we went in this huge protest against the war in Iraq, hundreds of thousands of people taking over the streets of San Francisco, Market Street, the City Hall. But now I think that there is one act of very revolutionary act that is happening now outside of the mainstream media, and is that people is looking for seeds, like from Seven Seeds Farm. I was talking with Elizabeth Kaiser from Singing Frogs Farm, and she told me that now she has a lot of more people, like 1,000 people more in their waiting list for the CSA. than before during this crisis. So this is impressive. And when I start organizing about the GMO leveling, and we gathered so many people talking about food stuff, we've been talking about how revolutionary is growing our own food. And that is the next question. What can happen if we all grow our own food and we transform lawns in farms in urban areas? You know, I have heard that it's going to be amazing, the change. Can you tell us a little about what do you think about it? I can be a lot more concise about the revolutionary act of growing our own food in urban areas, in rural areas. This is consuming for corporations, and how this is gonna affect the economy, the psychology, the philosophy of people, you know. So I wonder if you can more or less talk about it a little.
I would just offer up an ancient Chinese saying that I appreciate, that basically says, with food in the land and water in the well, what need for king or government have I? And when we get into self-governance, food sovereignty, justice-based sovereignty, whether it's urban, rural, suburban, and cross-collaboration between the so-called scales of settlement pattern, then we have real power, and that's what freaks out the power that Starhawk was talking about, the police power and the centralized power, is they want to divide and conquer. And so converting over to edibility and freeing ourselves from the chains of industrial agriculture and all the ills. The idea that huge warehouse in Beirut blew up. What was the bomb? Ammonia nitrate. What's that for? Oh, it's supposed to be put on soil to go blow up the soil and kill the soil and end up in the river mouth to create a dead zone that can't breathe in every ocean where industrial agriculture is happening. So going back to organic, local, community, carbon farming, community farming is where it's at. And I'm with Star and Don. Our OAC's permaculture nursery sold out. Can't keep plants in. Too much demand. It's amazing, the supply and demand equation. We need help, Tom.
Yeah, I'll chip in here. Back in 2003 to 2007, I was part of helping design and build the Bega Eco neighborhood in Australia. And, it has its own permaculture gardens and food forest. We started accepting local currency as well. LETS, local economic or energy transfer system. And if you were a builder, an electrician, a plumber, you could contribute to the development of the neighborhood, and that became your down payment on getting a house in that neighborhood. So this is like mutual credit systems, barter systems. And when the world starts falling apart, which is what we've seen, people start to think, well, where am I going to get my food from? Where am I going to live? How am I going to work with my community? And so moving away from, large centralized banks and sources of finance is key to local economic recovery, so that money actually stays in local communities. What happens is the money gets extracted from local communities, gets sent off to a centralized source, and that's where you lose so much of the value. So the more you can circulate money through your local food economy, your local production, microcosmic production, cosmo-local production, the commons, that's where you start to get this feedback loop where there's abundance. And right now, there's an invitation to people to switch to that abundance and local community economic development. Now, we saw oil stocks have absolutely plunged. The price of oil has plunged. And so literally the most bankrupted companies in the world are oil companies. And so, and everyone is starting to focus on the hyper-local supply chain. And so what we've seen is what all along people are saying will happen is that there will be a collapse at some point of the oil industry. And that's exactly what we've seen. So I think what this conference is all about is saying, get local and get organized now. We don't know how long this thing is going to last in this pandemic, but what we do know is that large-scale ecosystem collapse is happening. And if now isn't a wake-up call to get locally organized, I don't know what will be a wake-up call for people, but let's hope people are waking up.
I
think this is more or less the wrap-up question, so please, Don and Starhawk, and if you want something else to say, but if you want to answer this one, would be great, Don.
Okay, sure. I just have a quick image to share that to me, showcases this concept of this moment that we're in. If you can't see it, it says the people don't know their true power. And then you can see I'll just grow my own food. And I think that's one of the things we've really displaced our agency. A lot of people feel like they have no leverage. They don't have a ratchet on the paradigm we're in. And growing your own food, besides actually like giving you vegetables, herbs, flowers, fruits, that kind of thing, it also puts you in the driver's seat of realizing you can make decisions that affect the future. And all we have to do is look back about 100 years ago, and grocery stores largely didn't exist. And 100 years ago, 75% of the human population live in villages. So for myself, I feel like right now is a good time to find the others. Who loves living things? Who loves biodiversity? Who is all about trying to create a hopeful future for our kids? And gardens is just one vehicle through which we do that. We build community around life. And I'll just stop there, and I'm excited to be part of that.
I wonder if you would like to wrap up with 1 minute intervention, 2 minutes intervention. And I also want to thank you all. This is amazing, and we have to have another plenary with you all. But if you would like to wrap up in a 2 minutes run, it would be great.
Oh,
would you like to okay.
Yeah, sure. Once again, I'll just riff on that whole thing, because I work with a lot of young people here on our farm who come through studying, interning, just traveling through. And what I see among a lot of the millennials is our awareness of the scale of the problems is so vast now. And I don't need to run through the list because they're all in our face. And I feel like if you want to be on board that the hopeful ship of a vision for the future is find a way that you're increasing life. And maybe that's seeds, maybe it's nursery starts, fruit trees, maybe it's restoring watersheds, perhaps it's helping heal the sick, perhaps it's educating young people. Whatever's increasing life, you're going in the right direction. If your life force is engaged in decreasing life, tokenizing, minimizing biodiversity or our human abundance, then now is the time to pivot. And we all want to help you do that.
Thank you. Tom, would you like to go?
I'm sorry, that cut out. Can you say one more time?
Tom, would you like to go next? Thank you so much, Tom. And
yeah,
Tom,
sure.
Would you like to...
Thanks, Miguel. Yeah, it's we've got an opportunity, collectively to wake up and build our regenerative local economic systems now to become more resilient. The increasing chaos that we're going to be seeing is going to be increasing, and so resilience needs to be increasing at the same time. And we know what we've heard from growing your own food. If you're relocalizing production, that's resilience. And so I think the formula for resilience, people need to self-organize and make it happen. Otherwise, you don't have enough resilient parts of the world working when the next chaotic large-scale event happens. So I think what I'd really like to see is people start self-organizing in really strong ways, start building up structures that will be resilient for the next chaos. You know, we have 10 years basically to draw down enough carbon on the planet, relocalize food supply chains, and regenerate our soils. And so we've got a big task ahead of us. And yeah, I really hope that people come together and make it happen.
We are coming together to make it happen, and we will do it with people like you, like Starhawk, like Don, like Brooke. So Brooke, can you please go next?
Okay, yeah, just wrapping up. Yeah, I'll get on board with the pivot towards life, and I think there's this question before us: are we antibiotic or are we probiotic? Are we against life, bios, or are we pro-life? Right, and that's a key question. The current paradigm, this white supremacy, patriarchal, capitalist paradigm, is clearly a death-based design, and it's functioning perfectly for the 0.01%ers of people who are plundering at this point. And the pivot is, the resiliency looks like connectivity. When you look at a fabric, when a mosaic that's a woven warp and weft of connectivity, it's reweaving the hands that are joined, the hearts that are joined in a connectivity framework, and that holds resiliency, has the capacity to buffer itself through the chaos that is going to continue to just increase in its pace and scale because of the level of destabilization that's around us. And so find your allies, support each other, be nice to each other, you know, play all the kindergarten rules, just like get in the sandbox and share those toys, and it's that earth care, people care, fair share principle. And then, yeah, just find your liquid carbon pathway back to this world. So we either believe in scarcity, where you're scared in the city because there's not enough with a clenched fist, or it's abundance, and that's your buns are dancing because there's plenty if we just are willing to share it in a pathway of abundance. So in that regard, get your buns dancing.
Thank you so much. Starhawk, would you like to close these interventions, please? Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay,
can you hear me now? Good.
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say, yes, we got to self-organize, but also just to remember, if we want to create more diversity in our systems, most of us are embedded in systems that are sort of de facto segregated. And if we self-organize with the people immediately around us, our friend networks, they're often going to remain networks of people who look more or less like us. And that's not bad, but it's also not the diversity and resilience that we need. And to get that, you sometimes have to extend yourself and go a bit out of your comfort zone and go the extra mile to bring people in, or to find what people are already doing in their communities that you can get behind and you can support. And that's how we build those truly resilient, diverse networks. When we do that, I also think it's important for us to give ourselves time. You know, people often talk about having a spiritual practice or a nature practice, but if we're working to protect nature, we have to also give ourselves time to be in nature and to do the things that renew and regenerate our own spirit and bring us back to life and hopefulness and health, because that way we're going to be far more effective at doing the work of change and transformation that is before us and that is so immense. And I strongly believe that when we take up that work, when we do that, when we ally ourselves with nature, with the great forces of creativity and regeneration on the planet, then we have enormous powers working with us that can help us do this work of healing.
Thank you so much. It's so good to close with you, because actually the intention, the focus of Soil Not Oil is to be very diverse. We are an inter-ethnic, multi-level, cross-sector collaboration of individuals and organizations, sponsors, people that come together every year to make Soil Not All happen. And that is our focus, is why we support all kind of campaigns, from the landless movement in Brazil, to the Zapatista movement, to Black Lives Matter, to immigrant rights in the US, all kind of movements, because it's part of this diversity that you are talking about, that we have to reach out, we have to be part of to gain allies and to support each other, because there is only one human race that is the human race. There are no races, only phenotypes. So, and thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Starhawk, again. Thank you, Don Tippin. Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brooke. And thank you all the sponsors that have been supporting Soil Not All. Mark Esquire, who has been there, Miguel Perez, Jason Gonzalez, Bunker, who was behind all this Zoom platform. And we're going to continue learning from you and sharing everything that we learn from you with this platform that is an educational platform that we have created now online with Soil Not All. And we are closing now the 6th Soil Not All International Conference. And we hope you all like it, and you learn something from people from Kenya, from South America, from different countries, from India with Vandana Shiva yesterday, Tom Goldtooth this morning, yesterday, John Din Liu, and Richard Hemberg, who was talking about the fossil fuels industry. And please keep connected, because we're going to start monthly webinars on different issues that are interconnected, and also we're going to start organizing the next Soil Not All, because we cannot stop this. You know, it's like the food system. It's the only thing that can stop. We have to continue producing seeds, growing plants, and feeding each other. So thank you so much again, everyone.
Thank you, Miguel, for all your work. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you, everyone.
To all the people doing all the work behind the scenes for this, too.
Yeah, thank you.